Okay, yeah. See you again. Yep. Yeah, and it was weekly. 5, 6 people, but it's big. It's on the line. I was saying that. That's cool.
I feel like to be here. I think it actually take out 2 days. Oh, I see a good job. You're truly multitasking. You're all HBC all the time today. We want to fill your calendar. She's summer. Possibly finishing up the weather. Busy mornings for us. person.
I was having fun later.
It was good.
Yeah, check in with hands.
And Lucia. I know. This is a different state of Lucy. Yeah, it's Metro. Files and everything. It's more difficult.
Why?
Yeah. Very nice. That's good.
You guys are just waiting for my bosses, so.
Works.
Okay.
So good morning, everybody, and we'll call this meeting to order. This is a meeting, as you know, of the Community Healthcare Investment Consumer Involvement Committee. And, you know, our primary business today is to get an update on chart-based race over hearing from the staff on that. If you look at the agenda, the next item was approval of the minutes, but it appears that we're not going to have a quorum, so we'll go right on to the phase 3 update and look forward to hearing from David and his team about this.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Commissioner. And since we have less than a quorum today, I think we'll keep this even more informal than we usually do for the committee meetings. And so I've invited some of the staff to join us at the table today. Margaret Sneese, who's the Deputy Director of Strategic Investment, Kathleen Connolly, who's the Director of Strategic Investment, and CHICI, who's the Director for Accountable Care, responsible for accountable care. All of this team here and many others are both working on the Chart Phase 2 program, but also working on design for Chart Phase 3, which is a big topic that we want to talk about today. Welcome, Commissioner viewers. No problem. So first, do want to just provide an update on Chart Phase 2, which we are currently in the middle of this grant opportunity. But before I did that, I just wanted to highlight for you commissioners and for the audience, we do have a little handout that we prepared that was at the front table. We'll get you copies as well, commissioners. It is really just it's about a 4-page document that just summarizes some of the results from Chart Phase 1. We did do an evaluation report of Chart Phase 1 that was about, I think it was over 100 pages. And so we wanted to try to put something together that really just kind of summarized some of the key points from Chart Phase 1, which, as you all know, was completed some time ago in 2014. So really just a synthesis of some of the main findings. And as we think about kind of building the path across the different phases, a good reminder of where we started this program with some smaller dollar, more rapid cycle investments that was really helping to build the foundation for Chart Phase 2, and moving forward into Chart Phase 3, as you'll hear, a real emphasis on sustainability for some of these programs in these hospitals. So encourage audience members, if you didn't get this, pick it up on your way out. It is a slick little document and a very quick read, and will be available on our website as well. So with that, I will turn it over to Kathleen and Margaret for an update on Chart Phase 2 before moving to Chart Phase 3.
Great. Good morning, commissioners. Good morning, HPC and public. So we'd like to start off with an update on where we are in our Chart Phase 2. As David mentioned, we are underway with that program. So we want to give you a little brief update, and then we'll turn our attention into presenting our design ideas for Chart Phase 3, rooting ourselves in what we've done in 1 and 2 as our pathway to get to today's proposal around Chart Phase 3. So just wanted to let you know that we're 67% of the way through the program months for Chart Phase 2, and what that means is most of our awardees are more than a year into their program. We'd like to highlight our continuing commitment and what we've done in terms of shared learning across the cohort. We bring together our chart hospitals and regional convenings with the hospital and community partners. We provide technical assistance. We issue newsletters with updates about the cohort, stories of interest, trainings available, and we regularly monitor and update our chart resource center page for accessing pertinent information. In terms of the dollars dispersed to date, we're about $25.2 million have gone out of the total approximate $60 million that was funded. And as David referenced, an evaluation was done on Chart Phase 1. We've contracted with the BU School to present some of these interim results from surveys that have done, as well as baseline reports, and we'll be updating the committee and the board as we go along.
Can I just get a question on the previous slide? The $7,217,000 maximum outcome-based achievement payment. I forget what that is. Is that like a contingent?
Right, so the awards have outcomes measures, targets against which they will receive dollars if they hit the target. So for example, an award might have a 20% reduction in readmissions, and they have money set aside that when they achieve that goal, they get the full amount back. We also have a staged approach so that it's not an all or nothing. If you hit within certain bands, you don't make the ultimate target, you're still eligible for some of the achievement payment based upon the progress that you made against the target.
Okay, great, thanks. Kathleen, before we move on, since we have some time here this morning, this meeting is scheduled for an hour, but I just wondered if you could give us, I know that we had some recent regional meetings, some feedback or themes that came out of those regional meetings. I know a lot of the program staff are here as well.
Programs have matured, we've had a nice opportunity for the teams to share success stories and best practices and to think about how they can improve their programs based upon what they're hearing from other members of the cohort. As we're over a year into the CHART Phase 2 program, we've been turning our attention to, and when I say we, I mean the program staff as well as our technical advisor, Dr. Amy Boutwell, working with the teams on what is really working in their programs, what the promising practices are, the interventions that are having results, and we want to share that beyond the CHART Phase 2 cohort to the larger Massachusetts audience. And we also want to think about how we disseminate that information both in our investment programs and our patient programs to reach that broader audience.
What did you say the timing on that was? At what point do you think you would be ready to provide a more public?
So we're excited to say that we're working on that proposal now, and we want to come to the CHICI committee to review with you what we've done. Obviously it'll involve, we think we have a lot of great information to share, and the question is, what's the right forum to share it in? What's the right target audience? So we want to be talking with all of you and other stakeholders, our CHART cohort, our certification programs, to really get that fulsome picture of what would be the best way to provide this information. So we look forward to talking with you more about that.
And I think we generally take the viewpoint that while it would be great to have good positive impacts among these CHART hospitals, we think that there could be even a greater impact beyond just the CHART hospitals. And so how can we steer towards that? While we're on CHART Phase 2, just briefly, perhaps Kathy, you can just give an update in terms of some of the financial monitoring and compliance work that we're also doing in CHART Phase 2.
Sure. So the CHART Phase 2 awardees were aware of that. In order to be good stewards of the CHART dollars, that we would undertake a financial review process for a select number of CHART hospitals so that we could review the financial spending and ensure compliance with all the necessary requirements. We engaged Ernst & Young. So with our legal team, we have set up a process whereby we are selecting a variety of CHART hospitals to have on-site reviews. This is not an audit. This is a financial review where we can highlight areas for potential improvement or confirm that dollars have been allocated appropriately. We completed one financial site visit, and that informed some information that we sent out to the CHART cohort subsequent to about best practices and ensuring compliance. We're engaged in another audit. Again, Ernst & Young, our contractors, engaged in that audit. And again, we hope to have additional learnings and practices that we can share with the CHART cohort, again, to continue to ensure compliance and successful distribution of these funds. Okay, on to CHART Phase 3. So before we dive into the proposal around CHART Phase 3, we just wanted to take a few moments to ground us all in the goals of the CHART program at large. We're entering the third phase of the CHART program, and it's always nice to take a step back and remember, why did we start this work and where are we going? And so what guides us is really trying to inform and build a system to transform how care is delivered to be the most efficient and effective care that is of good quality and that is provided by our community hospitals. So we've really been investing in foundational and clinical transformation. So again, recapping the programmatic goals, this is a $120 million investment program, and we're really looking to engage with these community hospitals to ensure that they are positioned for success today and in the future, and that their care models are evolving so that they are delivering the right care to their patients at the right time, and that it is efficient, effective, good quality, and provides good value both to patients and to the Commonwealth. So I don't want to read to you, but again, we're focused in CHART on promoting care coordination, advancing IT integration, ensuring that these hospitals are building the capacity and the capability to participate in alternative models, accountable care organizations, value-based payments. I feel like we can throw out all the acronyms, but at the end of the day, it's really about, you know, the quality of the care and the transformation of the system. This is a driver diagram that really informs the work. You know, for health systems, providers, organizations to be successful in accountable care, there are many inputs that are required. And we at HPC see our investment programs and our enabling policies and our certification programs as driving towards this ultimate goal of accountable patient-centered care that is integrated. And so we just like to reflect on this, show the many inputs, and think about how we can support hospitals in their journey to move from, you know, what can sometimes be a fragmented system of care to a more patient-centered integrated care.
Before moving on from that, I wondered, Katie, if you could just talk about how you think about this, the certification programs playing into this diagram as well.
Sure. You know, this is the fishbone driver diagram, whatever you want to call it, that is holistically around all of our care delivery transformation efforts. These are the bones of moving status quo to an accountable, patient-centered, integrated system. And so, you know, you will notice that all of these, you know, predominantly the six sort of middle blue, we have lots of grades of blue here at the Health Policy Commission, ones are reflected in the ACO standards. Obviously, we've played up the behavioral health one in the patient-centered primary care certification program prime, but that's not to say that, you know, the rest of these are less important. It's just that's the one that we decided to focus on for the PCMH program. But all of these work holistically along with governance, legal structures, and how this system would work with other provider types in order to move that fully. And so through the ACO certification program, through PCMH certification, and all of our investments, this is sort of our framework for how we move it there. And I think, you know, the one thing that you'll hear a lot in Chart Phase 3 is how do we understand how the hospitals are able to move the great things that they've built within the hospital system to be part of a more system-wide, right? So APMs go to provider systems, not necessarily to the hospitals. The hospitals participate in them. And so how can we help to drive that movement and engagement of the hospitals to be really good partners to provider systems holistically? You know, should high-risk patients be managed in a hospital setting? You know, maybe not. Are they better managed in other settings, and how are we supporting the charter hospitals, the community hospitals, in becoming good partners as a part of those systems?
So just taking a look at the life cycle, if you will, of the various phases of CHART, you know, starting with CHART Phase 1 that was launched in 2013. The focus was really on building capability and capacity. So funding short-term investments to really lay the foundation for readiness to engage in new models of care and then sustain those models to, as Katie said, be good partners in accountable care and value-based care. So CHART Phase 1 was a $9.2 million investment. You know, in CHART Phase 2, this is a deeper investment in the hospitals over a 2-year period where we're working with them on a regular basis, engaging in technical assistance to really develop and hardwire, if you will, best practices in terms of achieving outcomes related to patient care or decreasing ED utilization, decreasing inpatient admissions. And so heavy engagement between the HPC and the CHART awardees to do this transformation work and to constantly innovate. With CHART Phase 3, we're really looking to sustain the transformation that's happened. I think we all would have thought we would have been in a different payer environment by now with a larger proliferation of alternative payment models. That is still underway. And so we need to continue to support the successful programs so that when APMs become the norm as opposed to, you know, still a partial, that they're ready to participate in those contracts. So we need to continue to support their readiness to participate through infrastructure and data analytics. And so we've also seen a lot of success in the CHART Phase 2 programs with partnering with others in the community, that the hospitals can't do this work by themselves and shouldn't do this work by themselves. So in CHART Phase 3, we really want to signal to hospitals that continue that good community partner work, continue to engage with others outside of the walls of the hospital, because that's really going to drive the improvement and the sustainability. And I'm just want to pause. If you just let me know if I don't think this is a shy group, so I'll keep going and you tell me to stop.
One point that I might just make before we move on is, the timing of the Mass Health Payment Reform Initiative and CHART Phase 3 is wonderful, really, because these hospitals are engaging with systems. They've already put in their applications to Mass Health to participate in the ACO program, which will launch in December of this year. And so, trying to be as synergistic as possible between our investment dollars in Phase 3 in what Mass Health will be funding in terms of both the payment model and their DISRIP supports, which is kind of their investment program that is now the new DISTI and ICBs or other grant programs that were focused on community hospitals are now as part of the DISRIP program. A lot of federal acronyms there, sorry. So, making sure that we are not necessarily duplicative of that, but reinforcing the policy goals and the investments that Mass Health is making and the federal and state government are making through that program, which is enormous. So it's a great time.
Yeah, and just reflecting on what Katie said, as we've developed our thoughts for Phase 3 for your consideration today, we've done a lot of stakeholder work, and Mass Health has been an important contributor and consultant with us in thinking through how do we complement the work that each of us are doing to change the payment models and support effective value-based care. So it's been great to talk with them, and it's great that the timelines are aligning, and that our CHART hospitals have signaled that they are getting themselves on these ACO applications, and so that's really exciting for us. So again, reflecting on the CHART goals and the investments in the various phases, as we've talked about, in Phase 1, it was a pretty broad direction. We offered a number of areas for hospitals to engage in, and really look to them to tell us what do you need support in these different areas. In CHART Phase 2, we moved on to a more focused clinical model where we said we have some clear goals that we want you to accomplish in your clinical models. We're looking for maximizing appropriate hospital use. Let's reduce readmissions. Let's reduce ED utilization. Let's focus on behavioral health care. And in CHART Phase 3, we want to get even more focused. So now, what are the successful models that have shown promise in Phase 2 that we would really want to invest in for this last Phase 3? And how else can we support these hospitals in getting ready for that payment reform and transformation?
Do you anticipate all 27 hospitals in Phase 2 participating in Phase 3, or is it possible to be a smaller number, more focused number?
I think it's certainly possible that it would be a smaller, more focused number. And as you'll see a little bit later, I think we are contemplating opportunities for all hospitals, all of the CHART Phase 2 hospitals to participate in Phase 3. But to the extent that we're going to continue funding for some of the core care delivery model, we want to focus on ones that have had strong performance in Phase 2. And not all of the hospitals will have had necessarily that level of strong performance. And so that will be a competitive factor that we're going to look to when we make some of those selections. However, I think we're also allowing an opportunity for hospitals to apply for funding that will be more in the vein of getting ready to take on APMs, not necessarily a clinical model, but infrastructure, data analytics, legal agreements, creating community partnerships that I think that they would still be competitive to apply. But it's a smaller dollar amount. We still have the 27 hospitals included. Will be a competitive process. I think we are signaling to the hospitals this is a competitive process. We are making no guarantees to hospitals that just because you participated in phase 2 means that you'll be part of chart phase 3, and we didn't make that promise throughout any of the phases because this is a competitive process. But at the same time, I also think about this as a cohort, and we are working this cohort through this process together. So I would probably advise, I think open for discussion. I don't think we would anticipate only funding 3 hospitals, for example, in phase 3 either.
And I would say, that not all phase 2 programs are going to achieve the success that they were striving for. But that doesn't mean that the program wasn't successful. And by that I mean, that they're through the process of engaging in technical assistance and looking at their models and serving their patients, many have learned about what the right interventions are. And so, anecdotally we've heard they budgeted for a nurse practitioner, and as they got underway in treating their high utilizer patients, they realized, what's going to better serve us is a community health worker. So I think a lot of learning and good practices have come out of this. Just wanted to put that. So I think Katie talked about the Mass Health ACO program and how we've spoken with Mass Health a number of times and consider them our partners and collaborators in thinking about this care transformation work that we're all trying to do. And so we want to make sure that we're complementing, not duplicating what Mass Health will be offering through their ACO program. As I said, many of our chart hospitals, if not all of them, we haven't studied every application to the letter, but we seem to have a good, strong feeling that all of our chart hospitals are in fact applying to participate in the Mass Health ACO. If there's anything you want to say.
I think the other important programmatic thing here is the new certification of capital C, capital P community partners. I think it's a distinction that we draw between what we say are community partners or community-based organizations, social service organizations, behavioral health providers in the community. Their program is really going to be focused on the serious and persistent mentally ill population for Mass Health that will be part of this CP population as well as the disabled LTSS population. The state will be certifying those types of community partners, and so thinking programmatically how we align how we're supporting hospitals and building community partnerships in how Mass Health is now certifying community partners and funneling money toward community partners for case management in a different way than has happened historically, which I think is a wonderful policy development, but we'll just have to kind of see how that plays out. The Mass Health community partners will also be regional, and there will only be a couple in each region. So I think it may kind of change the landscape a little bit with how our hospitals are working with little c, little p community partners today. The other notable thing is allowing reimbursement for flexible services, and so Mass Health will be able to give money through DSRIP to medical care providers to pay for things like rent, transportation, food, things like that in a limited way, but it really be able to extend the reach of the medical care system to deal with patients' social determinants of health in a new way.
So now we get into the meat of the design that we would love to hear your feedback on. So these are the key decision points for phase 3 that will inform the ultimate design of the program. And so we'd like to walk through each area, and we'll be talking about what we've done in phases 1 and 2 and how that's informed our thinking for phase 3. So we're looking at approximately $20 million in funding for phase 3, and we've contemplated that the awards should range between $500,000 and $1.5 million, and that you'll note the duration time is shorter than the chart phase 2 program. In terms of focus areas and performance targets, again, in phase 1 it was broader, and we worked with the awardees who suggested the performance metrics that they would monitor. In phase 2, we got a little more focused on our clinical primary aim areas. And in phase 3, we're saying we want to continue to invest in those promising interventions. We've seen the value of and again, to Katie's point, we're using little c for community partners. Chart hospitals have engaged with a variety of community partners that are outside the standard Mass Health definition, and so we want to encourage that to keep happening and feel that's a strong component. And again, continuing on this path of supporting readiness and or supporting entrance into these alternative payment models.
I was just going to highlight and emphasize again, I think where we saw, if you look to kind of the right-hand column here, in terms of phase 2, where we had very specific targets around reducing readmissions, ED utilization. So we would expect that for many of the hospitals, those performance targets will continue into phase 3. We think these are still important areas of emphasis, and certainly kind of align with our cost trends reports, and other work that continues to highlight that we underperform the country in some of these key areas and have a great opportunity in order to be able to drive value and savings to the system, and also happens to be better patient care.
Can you just talk about how you set, what the process was for setting those targets? Did you look at what like peer states and other parts of the country, look at what what certain rates are there, or I just need more color to how you set those targets?
Sure. So for phase 2, in the collaborative implementation planning process, the HPC staff and technical advisor contractor worked with individual hospitals to first identify the most appropriate target populations in their local environments. And so once we identified what the most appropriate target population should be, we set targets for the aim statements based on our technical advisor's national scan of best practices. And so there isn't sort of a set of formulae that established the targets, and they are certainly appropriately aggressive in many cases, seeking to really push hospital teams to do better and to really move the needle on these.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Margaret, but most of the readmissions reduction targets for the target populations are between 15 and 20% reductions over that period of time.
Typically 20% reductions.
Which is consistent, I think, with one national group that had set a goal, I think, of around a 20% reduction in readmissions over a 3-year period of time. This is a 2-year period of time, so more aggressive for our particular hospitals.
That's a target you see in a number of programs, yes. In terms of thinking through sustainability and HPC financial support in phase 3, in phase 1, again, these were short-term, high-need foundational investments. In phase 2, we, as we talked about, we gave $50,000 to, or $50,000 will be available once the deliverables are completed for strategic planning. And we signaled to awardees that we were looking for in-kind funding from the hospitals, and as well for those hospitals that were part of health systems, that we were looking for a system contribution as well. And so in phase 3, we, again, as our goal is really sustainability and passing the baton, if you will, and we're looking for, again, probably larger in-kind contribution and system contributions to lessen the financial reliance on HPC.
So I would highlight again, I think this is a decision point for the commission to think about. I think as Kathleen said, our theory here is that we will have less dollars to spend on these awards. Once these phase 3 awards go away, we want these hospitals to continue this work. And so to the extent that we can start to shift that responsibility a little bit more and not have it be such a cliff that occurs essentially once our grant funding runs out, and to really get them thinking about building their own ROI case. Part of that's being funded in our phase 2 around how they sell their CFO and saying we need to keep this high risk care team in place because we're seeing tremendous savings. And I would highlight, we had some of the chart hospitals at the board meeting a few meetings ago, and I think one of them did, talk about how they've been able to make the case in terms of the financial model in terms of the emergency department and being able to get patients in and out of the emergency department in a quicker way and having greater turnover, and that they're even, kind of already being able to sell their CFO to say this is good business model for us to invest in the care manager, the community health worker, the social worker who may not otherwise, be reimbursable on kind of a fee-for-service basis as we think about it. So part of that is what we're asking them to plan for in phase 2, and to the extent that they, there's hopefully a nice synergy here where they are thinking about this right now and incorporate those plans into the applications for phase 3 such that it will be a competitive factor.
And to the point of, the strategic planning dollars that are available, it's a nice inflection point for them to take pause and to look at their programs critically and to involve people within the hospital and the community partners that they've been working with. So it's not a small exercise, it should be a larger exercise, and we've been pleased to see in these strategic plans that the chart teams are engaging with the CFO, the CMO, the other leadership in the hospital to highlight or to talk about the chart program and what's worked well and what could fit into the larger vision. So in terms of competitive factors as we evaluate, again, our proposal, phase 1 was about aligning the needs of the hospital and the community, funding foundational activities for future transformation. Into phase 2, we really moved into measurable primary aims that supported care delivery transformation, and we're looking at a community of patients. In chart phase 3, we want to sustain those promising phase 2 care models. We want to look for continued evidence of transformation and engagement outside of the hospital. And we're looking to see that the hospitals are either participating in a risk contract with substantive quality measures, or they've signaled that they want to be a provider in an ACO.
And I think maybe Katie, just to speak to that last point, I think, again, part of our sustainability model here has always been around kind of the advancement of alternative payment methodologies and how the ACO certification links into that.
Yeah, so as we talked about before, all Mass Health ACOs have to be certified by the Health Policy Commission by the end of this year. And so to the extent to which these community hospitals have already begun working with systems that want to participate in Mass Health, they will be in partnership with, there's a lot more legal language that we could go into there, with a certified, HPC certified ACO by the end of the year. And that is to the earlier point out, we talked about, how do we ensure that there is an APM or some financial model coming down the pike that will sustain the work of this grant once chart phase 3 ends and the whole program ends. And I feel for these particular community hospitals, Mass Health payment reform is the #1 way to sustain this work, but it means that they have to work in partnership with a medical care system and not as community hospitals unto themselves.
Are we gonna meet that goal of ACO certification by the end of 2017?
You bet, Commissioner Lloyd.
Good to hear.
This is just a nice graphic, I think, that reflects the fact that the way the HPC defines community partner is quite broad. It's those medical and non-medical providers that are serving and treating the patients that the hospital sees as well. And so today that we're signaling to the hospital, continue the good work of partnering with the post-acute care and the SNFs, but also the great work that you're doing with the food pantries and social service agencies and other providers in your area. As I referenced at the beginning, we've done a lot of stakeholder engagement. We've talked to a number of our chart hospitals. We've talked to a number of community partners. We've talked to commissioners and other stakeholders to get their feedback on this proposed design to date. And we've heard the support for this idea of funding sustainable models that lead to participation in alternative payment models. We've heard support for community partnerships. Some would say require it, some would say consider it a competitive factor, but we don't need to require it. This work is happening. And also, again, support for the idea of the alignment with Mass Health ACO program and the DISRIP. Again, complementary, not duplicative. And so these last two slides, slides 23 and 24, bring together the proposal that we've been talking through today. So again, restating the theme that we really want to enhance and ensure the sustainability of these programs that continue to be collaborative and that continue to support efficient and effective care that's value-based. So we've talked about the proposed budget is approximately $20 million. We've contemplated two pathways that are not necessarily mutually exclusive. We know that there are a number of promising practices in phase 2 that will need a little bit more of a bridge and that we want to continue funding those. And again, we would be looking to the hospitals to show their financial support for these strong programs and continue the good work of multidisciplinary teams addressing the social determinants of health, all the transformational work that they've done in phase 2, that they would really double down and continue it in phase 3. But we also want to signal that we need to support the hospitals in their journey to readiness. As Katie noted, these Mass Health payment reform is a great opportunity for these hospitals to really engage in thinking about care differently and how they get paid differently and to become good partners. But you don't just decide to be a partner and can immediately participate. You need some help and some assistance and guidance. And so this funding to support successful adoption of alternative payment models really says that we want to provide some of that infrastructure funding to think about the data exchange. How do they work with these community partners in a more structured way? Do they need to put MOUs in place? What kind of business planning do they need to be putting in place to be successful? And so we want to provide funding for them to do that work as well. So on this slide, we recap some of the competitive factors that we've talked about and that we're proposing. Again, you've heard us talk quite a bit today about the importance of sustainability. Again, looking to the hospitals to provide more in-kind funding and to decrease the reliance on the grant funding. Be supportive of the DISRIP goals. We feel like a good competitive factor would be we've been working with these hospitals for, it'll be almost 2 years by the time we review the proposals for phase 3. So we've had experience with these hospitals and we should be informed by their performance in phase 2 as we think about them for phase 3. And we would like to see demonstration that they really understand the drivers of utilization and that they've set up strong interdisciplinary teams that don't just rely on a medical model to serve these patients. And again, that they're participating or signaling their desire to be part of alternative payment models or the ACO. In terms of outcomes, we, as David mentioned, we continue to need to work in the area of reducing readmissions, integrating behavioral health, reducing ED utilization, addressing the needs of behavioral health patients in the emergency department. So those very patient-facing outcomes will continue to be informative for phase 3.
Kathleen, the last one, the reduce the rate of behavioral health related ED utilization, which I agree with, but don't we want to reduce all inappropriate ED utilization?
Yeah, we called that one out specifically because in our cost trends report, we had noted that, while we had seen some fall off in overall ED utilization, the rate of behavioral health ED utilization has gone up. So this is not to signal that we don't care about overall ED utilization, but that, we feel like we need to address that.
I think both would be considered appropriate as far as outcomes. I think it's just creating a linkage to our cost trends, I think.
And I further underscore, Commissioner, that we've heard from Chart Hospitals tremendous interest in this space. They see the opportunity, they see the need, they're addressing it in phase 2 and wish to continue to the extent possible.
Do behavioral health related ED visits, are they the majority of inappropriate ED visits, would you say? Or and we say that half of them, right, are
No, the way that we have, you went from RCT here. No, the way we've divided it up is we do have a calculation on avoidable emergency department visits, and we kind of treat behavioral health related ED visits separately than the avoidable. And the avoidable can be both things that didn't need to be treated in an emergency department department setting, and or things that if they had gotten kind of good care in the community and had been treated and managed their diabetes or managed their asthma, they would not have needed to go to the emergency department. I think what we have found in terms of the data is that we have actually made some progress in terms of reducing avoidable emergency department utilization as a state. Behavioral health related emergency department utilization continues to rise, and I think where we have seen a lot of multiple ED visits, kind of the high ED utilizers, there's a higher correlation that those utilizers are BH related patients. And so in terms of overall kind of emergency department visits, it's not the biggest category, but in terms of the trend and where we see a lot of multiple users, they tend to be more behavioral health related. So that is one of the reasons why we've had this focus. And in many cases, the emergency department is a particularly inappropriate place to provide some of that care, especially if there's not a medical complexity situation that's going on and they're in crisis, having a mental health crisis or something like that. Many EDs are not well equipped, and that relates and contributes to ED boarding with patients, specifically behavioral health patients who are stuck in the emergency department for a long time.
So this last slide really just brings together a number of questions that we would pose to you for your consideration and feedback in terms of your reaction to the overall design and goals and ideas that we've presented today. We talked about wanting to continue funding promising practices in phase 2. What are the circumstances that we would say, yes, that needs to continue? We've signaled that we want to continue focusing on reducing inappropriate hospital utilization. We've given you recommendations on participation in risk contracts or ACO certification. And in terms of competitive factors, we've listed out a number of them. What are we missing? Here are some of our thoughts in terms of how we might assess performance. And we've had discussions about the role of community partners. So don't want to read the questions to you one by one, but would love to hear your feedback, thoughts, ideas that you want to jump back to.
This was a great presentation. The timing of all this coincides nicely with the hearing we had a couple of weeks ago on whether we should reduce the cost benchmark. Because a lot of these things that we're focused on, we've also identified as spending that is inappropriate and we could make some progress on, and we could maybe, reduce the benchmark and feel comfortable that there's an opportunity to make it. So it feels like it's all coming together nicely. So I really been pleased to kind of hear where everything is at. So this was really helpful. So I don't know, Lauren, do you have any comments or questions?
I mean, I think that in terms of the competitive factors, and one of the questions is how should performance of phase 2 be assessed? I think that I don't know if we can require the hospitals, the awardees, to kind of show on paper a plan how it could be scalable. So HPC should be looking thinking about how these things are scalable, but also I think it would be helpful, I'm sure we get helpful feedback from the hospitals themselves as to how, like you said, how would you scale your model to other hospitals? And I don't know if there's a way for you to kind of bring a collaboration of hospitals together and have them, I don't know if they would come in the form, what the forum would be, but have the hospitals working together to help other hospitals achieve and start thinking about setting up some of the same models themselves, even if they aren't grant authorities. So I'm thinking aloud here about how we can really press upon the scalability piece.
I like that idea, because what I hear you saying is, we'll have some, within the chart cohort, we create those opportunities in the regional convenings for some shared learning, but how can we be even more prescriptive, maybe for lack of a better word, of this is a promising practice. These are the things that I did to make this, readmission reduction. Here, another chart hospital, maybe you're not doing as well. Let me tell you how to do it. Or a non-chart hospital, here's how to do it.
And I think there's something there too in terms of asking them to put their plans on paper and have that be a competitive factor that they would look at in terms of how would you think about, if we're going to fund you in phase 3, it's a promising model, right? So it's met that bar. Hospital, how are you thinking about actually spreading that? Maybe within your accountable care organization or to other hospitals in your system. And it may not be that HPC needs to be the one holding that regional convening, and they're making commitments to do the hospital mentors or part of a broader collaborative, or saying we'll be a hub in central Massachusetts for helping all other central Massachusetts hospitals be able to do that. So I think that can be something where we can kind of allow them to come up with some ideas themselves in terms of what they would do and score that as something that we would want to see in the applications and plans.
Well, and as you say that too, I'm almost thinking of, right, so this chart program has been successful in reducing readmissions. And so now that I'm on an ACO application, this is how I'm going to be a good partner in the ACO. This is what my program can bring to patient care and success.
I think one decision point that I just want to highlight for commissioners is, thank you.
Real time.
Yeah.
RCT is here.
Yeah.
One of the design decisions that we're proposing here is that we're not really funding brand new ideas in terms of care delivery models. I think we're putting an emphasis more on what are the things that are working in chart phase 2 and kind of having those promising models be the things that we want to really emphasize on. And so, that is a little bit different than where we started in phase 2, where again, these were kind of brand new ideas and really testing new things. Here, I think the emphasis more is around scaling and sustaining the things that we have learned in phase 2 are working well. And I think it's my personal feeling is I think it works well, combined with the fact that we are still testing new ideas through some of our other grant opportunities. And I want to mention the Healthcare Innovation Investment Program, is separate from the CHART program, but really there we're testing brand new ideas, and CHART hospitals are eligible for funding through that program. We've talked at other committees around a new opportunity for hospitals to apply for grant funding that is around engaging patients that arrive in the emergency department with medication-assisted treatment. If they're arriving with an overdose or with a substance use disorder issue, that was something that the legislature directed us to do last year, a $3 million opportunity that we are also working on kind of creating that opportunity. So I think there will be those side opportunities to test brand new ideas about how to do things, and here I think we're trying to kind of put a bow on the CHART program in and of itself and saying an emphasis more on what is working. But I want to highlight that is a decision point for us.
I think one thing that's worth noting that ties in here is in the governor's budget proposal, for the payments coming out of the Community Hospital Reinvestment Trust Fund, one opportunity we saw to draw down federal matching dollars was through the ICD grant program. And one of the conditions to draw that federal funding is to have the hospitals fill out sustainability and audit reports. They have to conduct some sort of proposed plan, and will be subject to some sort of audits that look at, and I think one of the things that we're thinking about is how do we get these hospitals to come up with a plan for sustainability. So I think it's just worth noting because hospitals will be thinking about this, those hospitals that are eligible for payments from that fund will be thinking about that sustainability piece. So it might be something worth tying in.
And at the very least, we want to make sure that we're not asking the same question in slightly different ways, such that hospitals are having to do that twice. So that's a great point. Thanks, Juan.
I don't know if are you gonna walk us through that? I'm curious about the timing, because we're gonna be asking hospitals to apply for phase 3 before the phase 2 is completed. It just seems a little challenging to me, but I'd like to hear your,
Yep, it's a little tricky. And so, as we think about assessing performance in phase 2, we won't have the final adjudication of the phase 2 awards at the time of review and selection for phase 3, but I think you've heard us talk about we're gathering data and meeting with these hospitals on a regular basis, so we're assessing performance as we go. So right, yeah, but there is potentially going to be a gap in when phase 2 ends and when phase 3 would begin.
One observation I'll make is that we have heard directly from hospitals that they're concerned about that gap. One example I can give is a team that has a number of community health workers on the care team. 3 of them have been accepted for graduate programs that begin in the fall. And that's wonderful for these people, and I'm glad they got a great start in healthcare with the CHART program. That's a challenge for the team. And so the more quickly we can indicate to CHART hospitals which programs will be able to continue, the more effectively they can retain staff, which is going to be central to their success in phase 3. So we wrestled with this quite a bit, and it's not immediately obvious, but I think this comes close to threading the needle.
Great. Next steps.
Oh, sorry, I skipped ahead to the timeline. So we appreciate your feedback. We continue to work on the proposal that you've seen today, and we expect to come back to this committee again with some more specificity. Our goal is to go to the board meeting on May 10th with the request for a vote to release the RFP for the phase 3, and so we will be back with you.
will we be meeting as a committee before that, or is that the next?
We don't have one currently scheduled, but we are going to schedule one to finalize this proposal before
the committee, before the board meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
So obviously, if you're driving later today or tonight, you have any ideas that you didn't get to express today, always, anytime.
Only if you have hands-free on your phone. Yeah. Any other questions? This was really helpful. Thanks.
Thank you.
Everybody, it was a good presentation. Look forward to hearing more.